90% of New Mexicans get their drinking water from the ground. It is a supply fed by a melting snowpack flowing down mountains and rivers and streams and filtering into the ground. But with rising temperatures, warmer and shorter snow seasons, less of that water is making it into the aquifer. To keep up with plummeting water levels, municipal and private wells are getting drilled deeper and deeper into the earth. This one in Las Cruces, New Mexico, is going down 160 feet. But this kind of water security can come with a $10,000 price tag. For people living in low-income, unincorporated communities nearby along the U.S.-Mexico border known as colonias, it is not a viable option. Many residents depend on shallow wells dug by hand.
People here, they know how to do it, so they do it by hand.
Maria Governali says when she finally struck water 25 feet below her home outside of San Elizario, Texas, she and her family couldn't even drink the water. They still used it to shower and do laundry until they realized it wasn't even good for that.
The clothes was like turning yellow.
And that's a minor problem compared to health concerns. A 2015 University of Texas health impact study reported high concentrations of arsenic and nitrates in many colonias' water supplies. They also found higher than normal rates of waterborne diseases among residents, many reporting cases of diarrhea, dysentery, and skin lesions.
We used to take a shower with that water too, but the skin was with a lot of rashes. I have, scars from that. That's what a doctor told me. Well, you're gonna have that all your life just because of the water. I said, oh my God.
Treatment and municipal water systems can deal with these impurities. Governali says a lot of residents bought land from developers with assurances it would eventually be piped into nearby water systems.
The developers take advantage of the people. After we start living on the land, we see the problems that we face.
A lot of people living in colonias have to haul in their water through tanks or buy water bottles. And some scientists are concerned climate change will leave more people without access to running water. William Hargrove is director of the Center for Environmental Resource Management at the University of Texas, El Paso.
Well, they're very vulnerable in terms of climate change. During very hot and dry times, maybe the water table drops. It could drop below their intake, and they could be without water for a time period during the hottest time of the summer. People living in colonias and living in rural areas, they're also living kind of in the context of also agriculture, irrigated agriculture. Farmers are also pumping water to apply to their crops, and makes people who have a domestic well vulnerable.
Pecans, alfalfa, and cotton are all thirsty, heavy water use crops grown in Chamberino, a colonia in New Mexico where Patrick Marquez lives with his family. Marquez says his well runs dry for a couple weeks every year while the farmers are pumping water out of the aquifer.
Thank God to my neighbors that, I've been able to run a garden hose to give me water so at least my kids can take a shower and, we can use the facilities.
According to the 2009 Housing Assistance Council Community Report, the Marquez and Governali families are just some of the 1.5 million people living in colonias between Texas and California who depend on vulnerable water supplies.
I'm living here in the United States of America, so I'm supposed to have water.
A few years ago, Governali decided to take matters into her own hands, starting Familias Through Fedoras, a non-profit to effect change and organize residents. And she's had some success getting developers to follow through on agreements to pipe water into colonias. She's also secured housing and urban development grants to build water infrastructure.
And I said, no more. I have to do something for me, for my kids, and for the community.
But running the organization with unpaid volunteers and federal money isn't enough. There's only so much she can do. Marquez says he conserves water where he can, but he says it might be for naught if farmers aren't willing to plant more water-efficient crops. Unlike the large-scale farmers, Marquez says he can't afford to keep digging deeper wells. He says as groundwater levels fall, the burden of rising temperatures will make things worse for residents.
It is falling on the average person because, we're the ones that are going to suffer. More people need to be aware of the water situation. They need to conserve. I'd have to think of the welfare of my children.
And a 2015 NASA climate study projects Southwest water supplies will only be diminished further with an even harsher drought projected in the next 30 years.